Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts. Welcome back to day number 13 of March Madness. Today's page map sketch comes from October of 2008. I pulled out the Reservation Ohana kit to document my birthday celebration at Ohana from last year. I think I talked about this before in regards to making the embellishments really large, but I actually like the way that it turned out in this particular layout. I again left in the picking out of the background color to show you guys just how much cardstock I have. It is really ridiculous the amount of colored cardstock I have. I'm really pushing myself this month to continue to use colored cardstock, but I think that it's going to be something that I continue even past this month, just with the sheer amount of cardstock that I have. I did narrow it down to 3 pieces of green cardstock, and then from there, using the pattern paper to decide which one I was going to use. Then my first set of print and cut features were ready, so I took those off the mat and added the second one. I had recently done a review of some papers to use with your print and cut options. I'll link that video here. And I will say that I am going to switch up to the hammermill paper, which I have done here, but forgot to set my blade to cut twice because the hammermill paper is 100 pounds. It is very thick paper. It does take a little bit extra pressure to get it cut off. You can see I did do that on the second one and it popped out much easier than the first one. The presentation paper, while I love that paper, it was leaving paper dust on my mats, as well as I noticed that it was very easy to mess up in regards to like causing scratches or the ink coming off the paper itself. So while I love the look of the presentation paper, it's probably not best for scrapbooking. So I have switched over to the hammermill, and I'm going to do a little bit more research, maybe trying a couple other pieces, because I do really like the hammermill paper, but the 100 pounds is kind of thick. And I think that if I could find the hammermill in maybe 80 pounds or 90 pounds even, it would just cause a little less bulkage in my layouts. So I'll probably redo my review of the papers when I have a little bit more types of paper that I can try out. I definitely am going to have to do some more research on it. But I do enjoy the hammermill 100 pound cardstock. It is a very nice weight and I like the way that it prints out. It was number 2 for me when I was doing my review, and it is a close comparison to the presentation paper. I did have to use my X-Acto knife to get a lot of the pieces out, just simply because I had already taken it off my mat and I wasn't able to run it through the mat again. And then I definitely inked up the edges. I spent a little bit more time inking up these edges because I did have that not crisp cut when it went through the silhouette. So I'm definitely still learning about this. I am absolutely in no way an expert, but I do feel like using all of the digital content this month has really helped me learn what to do and what not to do when it comes to digital printing. So I got all of the edges of the pieces inked up, and I'm going to cut off the branding strip from this darker green paper. And I really like the way that this green paper sits with the pattern paper that I cut out. I did decide to cut out 2 of the smaller pieces. I used this yellow stripe paper as well as some of the ribbon from the kit. And then my main piece of paper that I'm going to use is this Aloha paper. It has some flowers on it, and then it also has the word Aloha written in really small print. I did actually print this out twice, and the first time that I printed it out, it was much smaller, and I wasn't liking how small it was. So I did reprint it just a little bit larger. Then I'm also going to use this wood grain paper. Even though I have wood grain in my collection, I liked this darker wood, which I don't think that I have in my collection. So I did decide to go ahead and print it out. And it is a really pretty wood grain that I would absolutely use in other collections. So I'm just building up the background paper similar to the way that the sketch has out, and then I'm going to add my photos down. I'm actually going to have 4 3x4 photos and only 2 4x6 photos, but I did use Canva to create a collage, which will give me a total of 10 photos on this layout. And then I'm going to add a page starter over to the left, and it is actually going to be really large. But between the page starter and the title, those are some big pieces on this, but I do feel like they are focal points for this layout. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the paper down. As I'm getting the paper down, let me just tell you a little bit about these photos. These photos were taken for my birthday celebration, which was at Ohana. Ohana is a restaurant at the Polynesian resort, and they do breakfast with character dining. So most of the time I've come to realize that the character dinings are usually done at breakfast, which I'm okay with because I'm always going to enjoy breakfast food. We had Lilo, Stitch, Mickey, and Pluto come visit us during this breakfast, and they all had on some Polynesian vibes to their clothing. Mickey had on a hibiscus shirt, which was super cute, and then they were all wearing leis. I did decide to pull out this red cardstock because I felt like the Aloha ribbon was getting a little lost. So I added that below the ribbon, and I felt like it really helped the word Aloha pop. Just like yesterday, this is a white core paper, so I definitely had to use some of my inks because there was some white core showing, and I don't really like that look. I know that that's a personal preference. I know a lot of people do enjoy that look, and that's perfectly fine if you do. I just don't prefer it on my layouts. I did decide to tear this paper, but I wasn't sure how it was going to tear with it being printed paper, so I did pull out my layering guides just to give me a straight edge, and it did give me a little bit of control with this tear, and I like the way that that looks. I went to add the paper down and realized that I needed to add it to the other side of the green cardstock since I was needing to cover up that space from not having a wide format printer. And then I'm going to build up the title. I used the alpha from the collection to spell out the word breakfast on my silhouette, and I did weld them together so it looks as if they're connected. In the center, I did have to pull out the Ohana sign, and that comes from the kit itself. So when I lay this on my layout, the best friends are going to be flat, and then the word breakfast is going to be popped up. And then for the page starter, I didn't have a lot of pieces that I wanted to add to it, but I definitely wanted to add that wood board that says Disney's Polynesian Resort, as well as that red flower, and then that flare piece that just has a little bit of decoration to it. I did add a little bit of fun foam to the edges of that flower and then some liquid adhesive in the center. And I'm going to hold down the center for a little bit to make sure that it is down on the page starter, and then it allows the fun foam to really make the flower pop. And then I'll add that flare piece right to the top. I did have to cut off a little bit of that flower because it wasn't sitting right. I added the title piece to the left-hand side. I am going to go ahead and just use some liquid adhesive on that so that it is straight down to the layout. And I did have a little bit of extra glue kind of seep out of the title, so I just used my poker tool to get that off. I felt like the photos were getting lost, so I was going to back it on this red, but I didn't have enough of it, so I went back to my 8.5 by 11 cardstock and just having my pattern paper there trying to decide what color to use. I ultimately ended up with this, what looks like a very bright orange color, but it's actually not. It's very subtle and it matches the flowers that are in the pattern paper. So because it is 8.5 by 11, I did need 2 of them to get all of my photos down. I pulled out my T-square ruler to add them to the cardstock, and then I'm going to use my layering guides to trim them out. I do have a tutorial for that, and I will link it here for you guys. I put these 2 4x6 photos a little too close to each other, so I had to peel one up and move it over, so I had enough space to cut out the photos. Once I got all of the photos matted, then I decided to go ahead and test them out on my layout to see where I wanted to put them. I generally had an idea of where I was going to be placing them. I definitely wanted my page starter to overlap that photo of me outside of the restaurant in front of the sign. So I had a little piece stuck to it, so I had to use my X-Acto knife to get that off. And then when I added the photo down of my mom with Mickey, I realized that I just did not have enough space. So I decided I would take a break from that and go ahead and put some fun foam on the back of my page starter. Sometimes I almost feel like I am cheating a little bit because these large pieces have so much detail in them that I don't have to put a lot into it, but it does take up a lot of space on my layouts. Then I decided that I definitely needed to cut down this photo of my mom with Mickey, and I'm gonna struggle a lot with it. I cut it down and I left the adhesive on the back of it, and that was my mistake. Because once I got it back on the yellow cardstock, I realized that the photo was not straight. And because I used the layering guides, that meant that my paper was not straight. So I had to pull out my powder tool to get the adhesive off so that I could actually lay it on my trimmer properly and cut it out. And when I lay it back down on the yellow paper, I'm going to try to cut it out again. And you can see how much of a difference it is and how not straight it was. But that yellow paper was just way too small, so I did have to pull out another sheet to make sure that I could have enough space to go around the photo. But I finally got the photo straight, and then thus my border straight as well. I realized as I was printing these photos out that this was my birthday celebration, and all of the single photos were of my mom with the characters. Like, I'm all in the family shot, which I don't mind that, but I was like, I didn't get any single photos with any of the characters, and it was my birthday celebration. That just means I have to go back so I can get my individual photos with the characters. That's what I'm going to go with. I did pull out my T-square ruler to make sure that all of my photos were straight. And then I did add some liquid adhesive to the back of that fun foam. I do like to put my stamping block on top of those larger pieces to help with the bowing, because using that much liquid adhesive does tend to make my paper bow if I don't put my stamping block on top of it. So I do want to encourage you guys to leave me some comments below on what you would like to see with a mini series for digital content. I am really thinking about doing a basic mini series of digital creations about how to print them out, how to use the print and cut feature, how to use the silhouette. Like, what exactly are you wanting from me? I know that there's a ton of videos out there on how to use your silhouette, and I don't really want to reinvent the wheel. If you guys feel like there's already videos out there that will do that for you and you don't need me to do that. But if you're struggling with a certain aspect of digital printing or hybrid scrapbooking, I would love to help out in that area if there isn't other videos out there that's available. I really didn't have to add a whole lot of other pieces to it. Over on the far right hand side, I added a little ticket that said authentic Polynesian cuisine, and then I added a plate and a fork on top of it. And then over on the left hand side, I did add a tag that has the word date on it, and I'm going to roller date stamp that later on. I pulled out my color boxes in red, brown, and yellow, and I'm going to add some hearts around the layout. I was super excited to be able to find the heart shape, so it looks like they were from the same sheet, in 3 colors that match this layout, which is not easy to do since these colors aren't like traditional red, yellow, and brown. I did have to use some liquid adhesive to make sure that they were down straight. I also decided that I would just put a little tiny enamel dot on the I of the word friends. And then this is where I'm going to add my roller date stamp over to the left. These photos were taken the same day that I did my birthday button photos. I'll post that layout here if you guys haven't checked that out. We usually tend to celebrate our birthdays during the weekends, obviously, because, you know, we can't make it to Disney when we're working or going to school during the week. So I was able to celebrate my birthday a little bit early. I also decided to pull out some wood veneer because I felt like I had that wood paper and the wood veneer played into the Polynesian vibe. So I pulled out a couple of wood veneer circles that had some hearts burned into them. And then I also pulled out some really tiny hearts. And for some reason, these hearts are super thick. So even though I wanted to add them to some of the popped up items, I couldn't do that. All right, guys, that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did do my journaling offline, and it says, for my birthday meal this year, I decided on the Best Friends breakfast featuring Lilo and Stitch. We enjoyed a family-style feast featuring an American breakfast infused with Polynesian flavors. All right, if you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.